All right, I have the signal to begin. We are recording this call, so please let us get through the presentation and we will open it up for any questions at the end. My name is Evan Stone and I am one of the co-founders and co-CEOs at Educators for Excellence. I am also a former 6th grade teacher and a native Angelino. I was brought up, born and raised in Pasadena. Today, I am joined by two amazing LAUSD educators and leaders, CHERRISA Smith and NADINE STAINE, who you're going to hear more from later today. CHERRISA is a program specialist supporting special education with nearly 20 years of teaching, and NADINE is a 2nd grade teacher and UTLA House of Representatives member. So they obviously have deep experience and knowledge and understand the system way better than I do, and so I'm really excited in a little bit to turn it over and get their perspectives. The core of our work at Educators for Excellence is about bringing teachers together to discuss the challenges that are impacting their students and their profession, and then to uplift their voices and leadership to drive change on behalf of teachers and their students. For the past 5 years, we've been conducting a nationally representative survey of teachers across the country. And we do this to really identify and elevate the perspectives of educators on the most pressing issues facing their classrooms. And this year, for the 2nd time, we not only did our national survey, but we dove deep into Los Angeles teachers to better understand their perspective in our nation's 2nd largest school district. And so today we're excited to launch the Los Angeles specific edition of our teacher survey, Voices from the Classroom. A little context about E4E. My co-founder, Sydney Morris, and I launched E4E in 2010 out of our Bronx classrooms as educators. We saw the brilliance of our colleagues, but we also felt pretty shut out of the conversations that were impacting us and our students. It felt like change was consistently happening to teachers and not with us. And so E4E was founded on a pretty simple premise that teachers should be agents of change, not subjects of change. And so E4E works towards a vision of an equitable and excellent education system that provides students, particularly those impacted by opportunity gaps, the chance to exceed by ensuring teachers, those closest to our students, have a leading voice in education policy. The results of the survey that we present to you today, Voices from the Classroom Los Angeles, is really a looking glass into the many issues that we're seeing in the education sector, both nationally and in LA. This survey is designed by teachers for teachers. Voices from the Classroom Los Angeles, I think, captures crucial insights into the voices and opinions of LAUSD teachers on a wide variety of issues that impact their students and their profession. And this is really critical because after 2 years marked by complete disruption to our school system, returning to the status quo is unfathomable. Schools weren't working before the pandemic, and it only heightens the challenges that we know already existed. But there's real opportunity with a new superintendent and the needs that are coming out of the pandemic. LA is uniquely positioned to make improvements at the district level that will increase equity and excellence for our students. This report dives into some of the top issues facing our district, including how we can start to rebuild after loss, the recruitment of diverse and talented staff, and the ongoing reckoning with racism and what that looks like in the classroom. For all of the data wonks out there, I will just quickly touch on the methodology. So before we dive into the report, here is a look at who created the survey, how it was created. Teachers designed it, but we worked with Gotham Research Group, a reputable and respected polling firm, to ensure the questions and sample are valid and reliable. Here's a little bit more about the methodology. The LA specific survey was an oversample of 110 local educators. That's on top of an over 1,000 teacher sample that we did nationally. We also had a 300 teacher sample of BIPOC educators across the country. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over and get into the data. The first key theme that we saw, and there were 3 of them, the first key theme that we saw is really focused on the impacts of the pandemic and rebuilding coming out of that. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to CHERRISA Smith, who's a program specialist with LAUSD, to tell us a little bit about LA teachers' perspective on how the pandemic has impacted their students and what is needed to rebuild. I'll turn it over to you, CHERRISA.
Thanks, Evan. As schools emerge from 2 years of the pandemic learning, assessment data shows students have fallen behind and teachers report that their students are struggling social emotionally. In this section, We'll talk about the current state of the classroom and what LAUSD teachers would like Superintendent Carvahlo to prioritize moving forward. Let's talk about mental health first. The nation is in agreement that the pandemic has had a severe impact on the mental health of young people. LA teachers agree 70% rated their students' mental health as worse than before the pandemic. They believe hiring more counselors and mental health providers is the best way to support students economically, 74%. And teachers tell us that their students have also fallen behind academically and that their schools are not supporting the specific needs of subgroups of students. 61% of LA teachers said that their students are further behind academically than they were before the pandemic. And only 50% of teachers report that their schools are meeting the needs of the non-native speakers of English. This number drops to 43% for homeless students and foster youth, 35% for students who have experienced trauma, and 24% for LGBTQ plus students. LA educators are excited about the possibility of changes under Superintendent Carvahlo and identified increasing resources for high needs students and schools as a top priority for him moving forward, 55%. In short, the majority of teachers want to see more of LAUSD's budget invested in a formula that is driven by student needs. Let me ground this in my own experience. Because students have been at home, they have been immersed in the challenges that their families have been experiencing during the pandemic. School was an escape for many of my students, but they lost that when they were learning from home. The stress and anxiety caused by health risk, economic concerns, and the social injustice that was happening across the country being highlighted were experienced by my students without the outlet that our school communities typically provide. This is why we need the increased support to help students make the transition back to school successfully. We all know LA Unify has significant attendance challenges this year, and so our focus needs to be on making sure school is a safe, supportive, and welcoming place again. An equitable distribution of resources will allow us to hire the mental health professionals that we need to help students not only recover, but thrive. The need is clear. In addition to social emotional support, we know our most marginalized students need targeted academic support. Keyword there, targeted. For example, if a student is struggling with reading comprehension, we should be using the federal recovery resources to target interventions based on that data. Proposals to just extend time for all students will only make it less appealing. We should be making smart, data-informed and research-backed investments like high dosage tutoring for our most vulnerable students or extending time for specific learning needs. This would only work if all of our district's resources are distributed based on student needs. I'm now going to hand it over to Nadine, second grade multiple subjects teacher expert to talk about teachers' perspective on how Great Resignation has impacted the classroom.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks, CHERRISA. Counter to the current national narrative that teachers are planning to resign in masses, voices from the classroom Los Angeles showed that most teachers remain committed to staying in the classroom long term. 86% of teachers reported that they are likely to stay for their entire career, in line with the 86% of teachers who reported this nationally. That said, we saw in the national data that teachers of color are far less likely to say they will remain in teaching, with only 52% of BIPOC teachers saying that they will remain teaching for their full career. As a result, we need to specifically invest in attracting and retaining teachers of color. So how do we keep teachers and particularly educators of color in our classroom and recruit the next generation of educators, especially in enrollment in teacher preparation program, as the enrollment in teacher preparation programs have been on a decline? Unsurprisingly, increasing salaries has long been noted as a clear way to increase teacher recruitment and retention. Data from Voices from the Classroom, Los Angeles, confirms this to an extent. 65% of LA educators believe higher salaries are paramount to keeping teachers in the classroom. Additionally, 42% said that making it easier to leave and return to teaching without losing retirement benefits, seniority, or other non-retirement benefits, without losing retirement benefits, would be most likely to attract talented and diverse educators to the field. In my own experience, people think that educators leaving are retiring at the end of their career, but this is not the case. We're losing too many of our young teachers because they're burning out. Recently, another teacher at my school, who is only 24, told me she was leaving the profession. I was really shocked. She said in her own words, "I am burnt out, I need more support, and I need to take care of myself." This resonates all across. This is what I keep hearing, with teachers. Sometimes I feel to myself, I feel like teachers are almost like we're the walking dead. We're walking around, barely making eye contact with each other, just trying to make it. We're sticking in because we love the kids and we know how important the work is. But this can only be sustained for so long. It's not going to sustain. We hear people say they love us, they love teachers. However, a boxed lunch isn't showing us that you care, isn't showing us much love. We don't need it only at Teachers Appreciation or at the end of the school year. Teacher also needs support to be able to support our students. For example, we should invest in teachers by providing mental health support, training to deal with our trauma and our student trauma, because people forget that we went through the pandemic as well. And the space and time to discuss issues that are making our work more challenging. This could be a monthly PD activity that is part of our regular school calendar. Additionally, professional development needs to be intentional. It should be grounded in our curriculum, and then we should have time to apply and reflect on the skills we're building. Right now, we have a single PD without any opportunity to reflect, discuss, and ensure we're learning and implementing the work. These one-off training drain teachers because we don't take the initial time to make sure we are actually implementing new practices. And of course, salary is most important. We need to invest in our teachers and make it possible for them to live in the communities where they teach. For African-American teachers, I am also looking for the respect because we are not respected in the same way our colleagues are. I am a UTLA chair in the House of Representatives, and I used to be a grade level chair. And yet I'm still consistently being questioned. As a Black educator and the only Black teacher on my campus, I have to try much harder and multiple times to be heard in our system. All teachers need a voice, but particular Black educators. Many times we're invited into the room, but never at the table. These are areas that our superintendent can lead on right now. He can use recovery dollars to invest in consistency of professional development and by ensuring he is visibly bringing diverse educators into the decision making. I am now going to hand it back over to Evan to talk about teachers' perspective on teaching about race, racism, and the history of the unrepresented population in the classroom.
Thank you so much, Nadine. That was great. So as we all know, there's been a huge debate over whether schools should be a place to talk about controversial issues, especially about both our nation's historical and current racial injustice. This has captured the entire nation's attention. It's on the front page of newspapers, governors, and local legislators are running on these issues. But when we ask Los Angeles teachers, their perspective is overwhelmingly that they agree that school is the place for these conversations to happen. They think the issues of race and racism and the history of underrepresented populations absolutely should be taught in the classroom. They definitely think we need to think about how we train and support teachers to have these conversations effectively, but school needs to be a place for this. And despite the fact that teachers want to have these conversations, currently only 37% of LA teachers agreed that our curriculum is culturally relevant. So that means teachers want to have these conversations, but they don't have the tools and supports to be able to do this. I'm going to turn it back over to Nadine to tell you a little bit about what this looks like in her school.
I will say thank you, Evan. At my school, I'm thankful because as being part of the BSAP, which is the Black Student Achievement Program, I've been fighting and we're making some strides tiny, but we're making some. And my school, we're actually getting culturally relevant materials to be placed in our classrooms so that our teachers will know how to teach the other kids, but not only for African-American children. We want to make sure that all voices are being represented, all people are being represented. So, and all cultures, because we live in a diverse world. LA is very diverse and the world is very diverse. So we want to make sure that everyone is being represented. This is critical to ensuring students feel more welcome in our schools and so that they're prepared to grow up in a diverse community of Los Angeles. That said, this shouldn't be left up to each school. LAUSD has an obligation to make sure that every school is using a high quality, rigorous, and culturally relevant curriculum. I'll turn it back over to Ms. CHERRISA.
Right now, the district is missing a comprehensive plan. There are bits and pieces at various schools or programs at different schools that are a strong program, but as far as that comprehensive plan across the district, I can see that it's developing, but we need to do the work and make sure that the resources and training is available so that it can be a comprehensive plan across the district. In talking with the district, there are a lot of initiatives, but some of them are small networks of schools and small numbers of teachers. Every teacher in every school should have access to both culturally relevant materials and high quality professional development to go along with it. We need a comprehensive district-wide CRE plan that serves all students. I'm now going to hand it back to Evan, who is going to talk about where we can go from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're going to open up for any questions in a second, but where do we go from here? So Superintendent Carvahlo and the school board are going to be finalizing their strategic plan for the school years 22 through 26. And he must make LAUSD teachers' perspectives central into that plan. He must take their perspectives into consideration. This report gives him a direct line of sight into what LAUSD teachers want and need. Teachers are clear-eyed. In this report, that is clear. Teachers know the challenges that they are facing, both in terms of the mental health and academic issues that are in their schools. And they are looking for the supports to ensure that their students get what they need. Teachers, particularly BIPOC teachers, are looking for the things that will keep them in the classroom at a time when we need them so much. And all of our schools need to ensure that every teacher and every student has access to a rigorous, culturally relevant curriculum and the aligned professional development to implement this well and with fidelity. Not one-off trainings, but a thoughtful approach to ensure teachers have the materials, have the time, and have the support to do this right for our kids. So these are just a few of the key themes that we found in this data, and there's a lot more in the report. So I encourage all of you to dig into it. We will drop the link into the chat in just a second in case you don't have it to the website. That said, we are going to make sure we are continuing to push to get these data points and educators in front of the superintendent and his cabinet so that they can address the key themes that are in this report. So at that, I will pause and open it up to see if there are any questions. You can bring yourself off mute or you can drop them into the chat.